All right, good evening, everybody. I am your Facebook meteorologist, Sean Bagden here, and we're followed along with storm chaser Eric Ogle today. Are you ready to get into this severe weather outbreak for the next couple
Oh,
of days here?
oh yeah, man, I'm ready to get into severe weather and even the snowstorms, if you're gonna
Oh,
hit that right.
yeah, absolutely. We're talking about blizzards, derechos potentially, and even long track tornadoes down in Dixie Alley. So, gonna be a lot to cover. Probably gonna be a long one, but it's gonna be a fun one. But as of right now, here is an overview of kind of what we're looking at on the severe weather side of things from the Storm Prediction Center right here. We'll just do the broad overview first, and then we'll break down into the models and get down into the nitty gritty of it all. But looking at tomorrow here, we do have a moderate risk currently out for areas such as Illinois here and into eastern Missouri, where we're expecting a relatively significant bout of QLCS tornadoes, as well as especially a long-lived straight line wind event here. Also, we do have that 45% chance of significant wind events occurring here across the moderate risk area, generally a wind-driven moderate risk at this time, as looks like hail threat will remain low, especially as we are going to be having a lot of that moisture pumping in from the Gulf here. Tornado risk with this first day here is going to be relatively low as well. We do have the 10%, which is on the higher end there, but certainly not as significant as we're looking at going into Saturday here. At this time, I would expect the most significant chance of tornadoes to occur along the northern and central end of this risk here. I bet you we get a trim back on this on the southern end as well. Do you want to break down the SPC outlook for Saturday, Eric?
Yeah, dude. So Saturday actually looks a little bit more favorable to me, at least for tornadoes across the south, mainly into Mississippi, Alabama, portions of western Tennessee. As we get those cells to develop, um, looks like it's going to be a little bit more of a discrete supercell, which is what you need for those tornadoes to really get going. If you guys live in the south, you're probably going to see a particularly dangerous situation tornado watch issued for that area, as conditions are pretty ripe. I wouldn't be surprised if a high risk isn't issued here within the next 12 to 24 hours, specifically
Yeah.
for that area. Got tornadoes probably going to move like 45, 55 miles an hour, and trees, and you can't see anything. So I mean, it's gonna be a long day for that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into the models here next, but certainly looking like we could be talking about the Tuscaloosa area from Jackson, Mississippi, especially, and up into the Tuscaloosa, Alabama area here, for potentially significant long track, strong tornadoes to develop. So it is time to get into the exciting part of all this. I myself like straight line wind events, so I think I'll cover the first part here. And I also like tornadoes, but Eric knows a thing or two about getting close to swamp monsters, so we'll have him cover that bit there.
Do you want me
Um,
to tell them my story too?
yes, you definitely
Okay.
should tell him
Okay.
your story.
Oh,
All right, and then we'll get into Eric's story there once we get into the Dixie Alley area. But looking at the oh my goodness, looking at the low level jet here, as we are starting to get this piece of energy upper level low moving out of the Rocky Mountains here and into the Central Plains. It does look like a rather potent low-level jet at 850 millibars is going to be sweeping around the base of this and intensifying. Oh my God. And intensifying as we go through the afternoon and especially into the overnight hours here. As we get into the sundown time frame here, this is about 1Z. you can clearly see this invigoration of Gulf moisture getting funneled into the Midwest area here. And this is going to give this line of storms that is going to develop out in front of this low the energy it needs to continue into the overnight hours and likely maintain its intensity, if not strengthen a little bit, as it tracks from Iowa and Missouri and into the Illinois area here. The one thing, the one thing I am looking at here, which may minimize the overnight tornado threat, is that we're seeing the low level jet here being more of a southerly direction right here, which is going to decrease the amount of spin we're getting with height here. But earlier on, you can clearly see before it really starts cranking up here, we do have a slight westerly component here to the wind, southwesterly component over the Missouri area here, especially central Missouri. And this is likely to push into the St. Louis area as well. Would not be surprised to see right along the cold front right here the potential for supercell development, since we do have a little bit less forcing down there. So storms will likely remain a little bit more discrete. And then it does look like the winds become primarily south to north as we head into the Illinois area here, which will keep this a very intense bow echo that's going to develop here, potentially even a derecho. And it does look like Chicago's going to be in on this one. Springfield, Missouri will be in on this one, especially early on. We could be looking at the potential for supercellular tornadoes if things are able to maintain a discrete position there. And then as we go overnight, this line of storms will likely continue into the Great Lakes region here. As you can see, this strong 850 millibar jet is pushing off to the east here, and we'll likely see this weekend as it makes its way into eastern Ohio. Looking at winds with this, I would not be surprised, as the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center has been saying out over this way, if we are able to get winds in excess of, say, 90 miles an hour down to the surface, especially in areas that don't have that stable layer near the Great Lakes there. So central and southern Illinois and also into eastern Missouri, you definitely have to watch out for this one if you're going to be in those areas here. And looking at the surface winds as this goes through, this is the model depiction of surface flow right here. Just have a quick look before this thing goes all crazy on me here. Okay, here we go. This is where we start getting the invigoration of that low-level jet here. And this is going to be the least of the worries of wind right here. This is just a sustained wind we're looking at right here, which is showing right now on models pushing into the Chicago and Peoria area here in the 35 mile an hour range. But if we zoom in on a sounding here, we can clearly see that just off the surface, we're talking about 60 to 65 knot winds, and this will likely be accelerated to the surface given how much moisture is expected to be in place through the column here. So likely seeing those winds, this would confirm that winds could gust upwards of, say, 90 miles an hour in some of the strongest cores with this line of storms as it pushes through this, especially the Chicago area and the Peoria area as we head towards nightfall tomorrow. So that's what we got for the moderate risk here across the Midwest. Let's bring it on over to Eric to talk about the moderate risk on Saturday for the Dixie area.
All right, thank you, Sean. So looking at some of the most recent models, like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if this is not upgraded to a high risk. More specifically for the Mississippi area, Western Mississippi, possibly even into near the Memphis area, Tennessee, and areas to the east as those storms kind of get going a little bit later on in the afternoon. Looking at some of the, um, can we share my screen or no, Sean?
You may be able to there.
Let's see
Yeah,
here.
you may be able to.
Share screen. Oh yeah, I
It
can
would be
share
in
it
the
now.
bottom center.
Yeah, let's see here. So kind of looking at some of these. This is just the NAM-NEST models. This is um, the it's called instability. So it's a measurement of how unstable the atmosphere is as it pertains to a particular area. So this right here, we have a lot of shear, turning of the winds with height, and a lot of these, a lot of shear and a lot of instability is a really good indicator of very strong to particularly dangerous tornadoes. This is just one model. Right now, we're looking at what's called the significant tornado parameter. That's the probability of like tornadoes coming into your area within that certain region. So we're looking at about 8 to 10 here. If we look at the HRRR, we're still looking at about a 8 to 10 range, which is really, really high, which is why I think that they will issue a moderate risk for this area. Looking at, let's see what I want to look at here. This is for the afternoon. As you guys can see, those supercells are really going to start going a little bit later on in the afternoon. Western Mississippi, that's where that shear line is going to be. That's where all that instability is going to be. So I do expect at least a few strong to violent tornadoes within that area. And we'll continue to see those long track tornadoes as we get throughout the night. Now, one thing that may end up being a hindrance is if it becomes more of a line, more of that derecho, which is entirely possible. But if they remain more discrete, which is the higher likelihood during this event, then we could see a lot more strong tornadoes across Mississippi, and maybe as we get towards western Alabama a little bit later on in the evening. So for those of you who live in that area, I would pay close attention. I would expect a PDS tornado watch to be issued at some point during the morning, maybe let's say 11 to 12 o'clock your time. So yeah.
All right, that sounds good. I would say I'll play the devil and the devil's advocate here. The one thing that I am looking at that may potentially inhibit potential strong long track tornadoes here, and there's really only one thing that I'm looking at when it comes to this, so it's definitely more likely than not to happen, a pretty significant severe weather outbreak here. But what we're watching now is this sort of meso low that is expected to develop on the southern end of this trough here. And what this could do for us is add just enough forcing in order to push up all that moisture that's going to be coming in off the Gulf there, and could potentially, as Eric said, create more of a squall line scenario with embedded QLCS tornadoes. But likely, given the amount of wind shear in place over these areas, we'll likely be seeing strong tornadoes, even if that is what ends up happening. And this would be even more dangerous just because a lot of these will be harder to see if they're QLCS. They would likely be rain wrapped in this case, even more rain wrapped than normal rain wrapped Dixie tornadoes. But as of right now, looking at the models, we do have a pretty scary situation setting up across this Mississippi and western Alabama area here. As you can clearly see, these southwesterly winds aloft cranking in with a low-level jet right here coming in out of the south and southeast. If I
Sean,
can
can I
pull
just
that up.
interject for a second?
Yeah, there we go.
Even if you have those, let's say that these cells are discrete and they're not like a line of thunderstorms, these tornadoes are going to be cruising at about like 45 to 55 miles an hour. Excuse me. So
Nice. Yeah, exactly. Looking at the storm motion vectors right here, if I can pull them up on the photograph, we are looking at cruising supercell storms right here if they are able to stay discrete. Looking at about 56 knot average storm motion to the northeast here. So we'd be talking somewhere in the 65 mile an hour range. These storms are going to be moving off to the north and east here. So if you do have a tornado warning in effect for your area, if you don't see something, it is likely over the hill and it's going to be coming your way pretty quickly there.
yep.
Just given those storm motions as well. And you can clearly see on the photograph right here, we do have some pretty significant wind shift with height here, starting at the surface out of the southeast, and then quickly within the first kilometer or two of the atmosphere, moving to the southwest, which is just the right amount of turning we need to really get things kicked off here. And as you can see here, the amount of spin in the atmosphere, we call that helicity. That's the area between the storm motion vector here and this red line that you're seeing. And as you can see, there is a very significant area in between the storm motion vector and your winds aloft here, which means we have plenty of spin for significant tornadoes to develop. Anything else you want to add to this Dixie Alley event or the photograph?
So that was a good question that was asked on from one of the viewers. It's Montana Seamer. It's probably going to be from about 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 at night, depending on where you're at. Well, western Mississippi and the northeastern Alabama is going to be during the earlier time period. So
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you there. And then we also have Marianne over here. She is asking what the threat level will be for Sharp County in Arkansas. I'm not exactly sure where Sharp County in Arkansas is, but we can do a quick overview for Arkansas here. And I'm guessing we're talking about Saturday, I'm guessing is what she's looking at.
So Sean, it's in northeastern Arkansas.
It's in northeastern Arkansas. Okay, so we're probably talking yeah, we're probably talking about Friday then, tomorrow, most likely here. And we're probably looking at a relatively lower threat down there when it comes to stronger storms. I would imagine the risk is going to be significantly higher as we head up into north and central Missouri here and into Illinois, as that stronger jet stream does start to move into those areas. Hold on, let me move this forward here really quick. Yep, there we go. You can see a lot of the nose of the jet stream does go off to the north of Arkansas right there. So I would imagine the major tornado threat here, if we were to realize one, would be with supercell storms embedded in the southeasterly surface flow right here, right by the St. Louis area, and then off to the east towards southern and central Illinois, and potentially even parts of western Indiana here. Would you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, yeah, that's about right.
Okay, perfect. And then what was that swamp monster story you wanted to say?
Oh, I haven't chased in Dixie Alley before. That if we were to go down there, that'd be my first time. So I got hit. Excuse me. I got hit by a tornado last year in western Nebraska, and when he talks about these tornadoes being rain wrapped, that was one of them. that hit me. So it ended up turning on me. So they ended up going from this to this, and I ended up driving right into it, and I didn't even see it. So, like you said, these tornadoes are going to be fast moving and rain wrapped. So
Yeah, rain wrapped tornadoes are certainly no joke. I've gotten myself into a couple of those, that's for sure. Especially, I'd say the most memorable one for me was the Iowa derecho a couple years, or well, now several years back there, where I ended up getting impacted by a QLCS tornado like we're expecting up in the Illinois and Missouri area tomorrow. And that was pretty intense. Like, we were getting wind gusts up to 90 miles an hour. And right when that QLCS tornado hit, you felt the wind shift, blew out the windows, and the winds light. We had a storm chaser next to us. They were measuring wind gusts up to 140 miles an hour inside that QLCS circulation there. So these fast moving lines with embedded tornadoes that are rain wrapped are certainly no joke, especially when you're already seeing winds in excess of 90 miles an hour. These storms up here tomorrow are really going to be ripping, probably 70 miles an hour or so.
yeah. So it's gonna be a long day, Friday and Saturday. Just be prepared. Have your tornado plans and just go from there.
Yeah,
So for those of you
absolutely.
who live in the South, like in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, if you guys have like 5 to 10 minutes tomorrow night, or maybe even like 20, go over your tornado plans with your families. Have a way to get warnings, especially if you have those NOAA weather radios. Those are great. Turn on your cell phones, keep those turned up. So
Yeah, exactly. And the weather radios, they are super helpful. If you're not able to hear the sirens going off outside, you can get
yeah,
these things for like $40 at Walmart. So just
yeah,
go out, spend the $40. It'll probably save your life at some point, especially if you live in Tornado Alley or down towards Dixie Alley there. So definitely highly recommend getting one of those. But after that, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
yeah. You gonna talk about the snow, or do you wanna?
Oh, yeah, let's go over to the snow because I do like to talk about snow a little bit. So let's go head on up into the northern plains here, where
Yeah,
it does look like we could have some pretty significant blizzard conditions going on up here as this low really starts to wrap up and move off to the north and east here through the Great Lakes. Let's have a quick look at 500 millibar vorticity right here to really get a show of what's going on in the upper levels of the atmosphere here. All the forcing we're going to be working with as this storm starts to move off to the north and east here. Here is our main center of circulation, which is expected to be right around the Nebraska-Kansas border here. When is this? This is going to be as we head into the afternoon hours tomorrow. And something that's very interesting here, you can see this sort of banded vorticity developing here. Here's one band, two bands, and then this is your main deformation band right here. Right on the backside or northwestern side of the low. And that is likely where you're going to see the heaviest snow falling out of this, probably along this trough axis right here, going through central Nebraska up into southeastern South Dakota here, and potentially even into southern Minnesota as the storm starts to move off to the northeast here. And this is likely going to be a very stationary band of heavy snow. As you can see, a very wide reaching band of vorticity here is part of a deformation band that is expected to develop there as that deep Gulf moisture gets advected back in towards the colder air on the northern side of the system as it's drawing it in off of Canada here. So you want to break down the surface precipitation map?
let's see what it looks like first. Oh yeah, me too.
That's true.
So I don't really use Pivotal Weather. I use College of DuPage. If you want me to share my screen.
Oh yeah, I just do this because people like the lines.
Gotcha.
There we go.
Share screen. I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay,
All
go
right, so
for it.
this is what we call the HRRR model. It's basically an hour-by-hour depiction of what's going to happen. If we go to the 0Z, we'll start to see some of these snow bands. I know Kyle had a question about total snow for the Casper area. I'm assuming it's for tonight to tomorrow. As that low continues to push east, we'll start to see those snow bands really start to move in, probably at about, let's say, probably about 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's where the heaviest snow is going to be, right across the Casper area. And they'll continue to move east. We could even see some rain in the Cheyenne, Kimball, Sydney, Scottsbluff area during the early morning hours before that changes over to snow. Now, as it sits right now, probably looking at, I'm going to guess, probably maybe around 2 to 3 inches at most for total snow accumulations, which we could take.
Casper Mountain could get a pretty good showing though.
Yeah, a little bit further up off to the west. Yeah, we could see some pretty good snowing up there. Now we are watching. What we are watching for is this is um the global forecast system. We're watching on Tuesday as this low begins to move in right here. It's going to stay more. Difference between this one, this low right here, and this low right here is that this low is going to be able to stay more south. It's not going to really eject northeast like the other low did, and that's going to allow for that precipitation to really push in across eastern Wyoming, northeastern Wyoming, throughout the afternoon and the evening. This is the one that we're looking at possibly getting some pretty good snow out of. So
Yeah,
as it sits right now,
absolutely. And the amount of duration that you have those east to west winds going into, say, the Bighorns there, the Laramie Range, Medicine Bow Range, that favors some pretty significant snowfall totals there. Even
yeah,
if the model isn't showing it right now, that sort of wind direction very much favors upslope flow to develop, especially downwind or upwind of those larger mountain ranges in eastern Wyoming here.
yeah,
So definitely something we need to keep an eye on here, especially if it's able to tap into the Gulf there.
yeah. It's gonna bring that moisture. It's gonna wrap around that low, which will help us out a lot more. Whereas this one, it just kind of ejected off to the northeast way too quick. So
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you there. Is there anything else you wanted to add into the snow there? You think everything was pretty
I
well covered?
I think we need to keep an eye on the end of March, to be honest with you.
I would agree with you on that. It
Um,
looks like we have some pretty good bowling balls coming across from the southeast there.
we it's going to be an interesting end of March, and we definitely do need the snow because the soil moisture is pretty low right now. So
Yeah, and one thing to kind of note here, actually, I'll pull it up if I have a chance here, is the drought monitor. This is going to have some pretty big implications on where severe weather could potentially set up as we enter into April, May, and June here. Let me see if I can pull it here. The drought monitor. Yep, here we go. So a lot of these areas here across the central U.S., especially over Texas here, and then a secondary area up here in eastern Wyoming and the western Dakotas here are in some pretty significant drought right now. What this means is a lot of those drier air masses are going to have a tendency to pull more east than they usually would, which It's not going to count out Tornado Alley entirely out of tornado season, of course, but it is expected that areas right along the Mississippi Delta, I would say, are more likely to have an above average season this year than, say, the plains, unless we are able to get some pretty significant moisture coming up here into this Wyoming, Dakotas area and down to Texas. All these dry lines that come in with these systems are going to end up being full of dust otherwise, and they're going to punch pretty far east, these dry air masses, further east than you would normally expect with these systems here. And we're already seeing that with this system coming into Dixie here, where we're likely going to be seeing 20s dew points in Louisiana as this dry line marches into the swamp, which is kind of crazy here. And then the SPC has also issued a dry thunderstorm advisory here for portions of Missouri, I believe Iowa, and into Kansas here. And that is pretty much something you only see down here in the desert Southwest. So something very rare that is expected to develop with those dry thunderstorms, almost monsoonal thunderstorms across the Central Plains here and into the lower Midwest area. Anything you want to add on to the drought monitor there?
So just because we're, like Sean said, just because like we're in a drought doesn't mean that we're not going to see like tornadoes or thunderstorms or anything like that. It's just, it's on the lower end. It's unless, yeah. But I think with these next few storm systems, that might make a little bit of a chink in the armor. But depending on how they set up is going to tell us a lot about how much moisture we're going to get.
Yeah, definitely. And once we know how much moisture we got at the end of March here, I'd say, then we'll have a little bit better idea of how the long range is going to pan out as we head into the peak tornado months of April, May, and June here.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, that is about all we have for y'all today. So hope y'all have a good night and stay safe out there if you're in the Midwest.
Are you going to do a live stream tomorrow too? Because I think you should.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing a live tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys can all see us tomorrow evening on a Facebook Live as well. We'll make sure to share it out to all the pages we did tonight. And then we'll go from there, and hopefully y'all stay safe across the Midwest and into the Dixie Alley area in the southeastern U.S. over the next couple of days. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
All